Beautiful. Thank you, John. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the sacred time, this community consecrated by our presence and our commitment. I am Michael Solomon, a member of UUTC since 2017. I am honored to serve as the worship associate this morning. With great pleasure, I welcome all of you to the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County. Know that you are welcome here, whoever you are, whomever you love, however you vote, whatever your race, age, class, gender orientation, or identity, whatever your physical or intellectual ability, you are welcome here. Whether you are here in the church building or using the magic of technology to attend service with us, welcome to the sanctuary. Whatever spiritual paths you have traveled, whatever beliefs you have known, if any, you are welcome here. For our faith calls us not to a particular creed, but to a covenant to honor every person's worth and dignity. UUTC's mission is to support individual spiritual journeys and to promote social, economic, and environmental justice. If you're here for the first time, welcome, and thank you for taking a chance and taking the time to find us and to worship with us. Now, before we get into the worship, I have a few announcements to make. First, our church seeks to bring us together safely. Please wear a mask while in the building at all times, except for those of us speaking from the pulpit. Use the clipboards at the end of each aisle to sign your name and telephone number in case contact tracing becomes necessary. And instead of passing baskets for our offering, use the baskets at each side of the sanctuary or the bowl by the doors on your way out. Name tags can be dropped off there too, and we'll put them back. Our charitable contributions for this month go to the Haven of Transylvania County, whose mission is to assist families and individuals in crisis in Transylvania County by providing a temporary refuge in a clean, comfortable shelter. UUTC has a long and fruitful relationship with the Haven, so I encourage you to contribute whatever resources you can to this essential nonprofit service in our community. After the service this morning, please exit the building as soon as possible so the air can exchange fully before the second service. If there is a deep joy or concern in your heart that you would like to share with everyone, raise your hand and an usher will bring you a piece of paper to write it down. Return the note to the usher who will bring it forward to be added to Reverend Bob's pastoral prayer. Reverend Bob has convened 2 meetings of the UUTC grief group. The next meeting is a week from tomorrow, November 15th. If you have suffered a loss of a loved one, now or in the past, and would like to be part of a supportive circle, please contact Reverend Bob for more details. Reverend Bob is starting a class this month on the topic of poetry and meditation. He will be offering this in person only. To learn more, speak with Reverend Bob after the service today. And next Sunday, the Soul Matters group will be getting together after the second service. The topic for November is holding history, and I personally am looking forward to it. The Soul Matters sessions have been wonderful, and the materials outstanding. Our musical call to worship today is hymn number 187, It Sounds Along the Ages. We invite you to rise as you are willing or able and hum and move to the music.
It sounds along the ages, soul answering to soul. It kindles on the pages of every Bible scroll. The psalmist heard and sang it, from martyred lips it broke, and prophet tongues outrang it till sleeping nations woke. From Sinai's cliffs it echoed, it breathed from Buddha's tree. It charmed in Athens' market, it hallowed Galilee. The hammer stroke of Luther, the pilgrim seaside prayer, the oracles of Concord, one holy word declare. It calls and lo, new justice, it speaks and lo, new truth. In ever nobler stature and unexhausted youth, forever on resounding and knowing not of time, our laws but catch the music of its eternal chime.
Our service begins with these words by the Reverend Chris Rothbauer, Senior Minister, Auburn UU Fellowship in Alabama. The Paradox of Ancestry. We gather together this morning because others came before us. Some have left examples for us to follow, other lessons for us to learn from. And the paradox is that many have left both pain and joy. We honor our ancestors this morning, not because they are perfect, but because without them, we would not be here. Together, sharing our joy, our pain, our living, and our dying. Now we move more deeply into our worship services with the lighting of our chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. To guide our lighting of the chalice, we have People of Memory by Reverend Kimberly Ann Tomchak Carlson, the Minister of Religious Education at the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. We are a people of memory. As inheritors of our ancestors' legacy, we hold their stories tenderly, gleaning wisdom from diverse journeys, united in hope for the future. Guide us to trust and love as we kindle the flame together. Low technology. That's what we will do. So now Reverend Bob has wisdom for all ages.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you all for being here or being online. The wisdom today comes with something I have no clue about. Have you seen this before? Yeah, I showed it to you, Jackson, but anybody, have you seen this before? One of the neat things about being a minister coming into a new congregation is sometimes the previous minister will leave behind things in the office. And this is a lot of fun, and it usually sits on the end table next to the chairs of people who would come for pastoral care. I suppose it's there for somebody who needs to be comforted. I mean, wouldn't you like to hold on to one of these things when you come visit the minister? One of the things that I've done in my life is also moved into different houses. And sometimes there's wallpaper on the walls that I didn't put there, and there's something on the top shelf of a closet that got left behind. I found a comic book in the furnace room of the house we just bought. So we inherit stuff, and we don't know why it is or how it got there, but we got it. And for a whole year, I haven't dared get rid of this sacred cousin it, whatever it is. I haven't gotten rid of it because maybe somebody wants it back. Or maybe it was the one thing that you remember from your previous minister, that this encapsulated the wonder of Unitarian Universalism. I'm good at making up things, aren't I? But I have it, and I have it still. It was there in the office, so it stays in the office. The other thing I inherited was a jar of scuzzy green water that had a note on it that said, "From last year's water communion." And I put some of it into the first year's water communion. We did a drive-through. And Vanessa put the tiniest drop into this year's water communion bowl. That's the other bit of wisdom I have. You know what I did with that water this week? I took it out this door and I dumped it in the memorial garden. And then I brought it into the kitchen and I scrubbed it lots of times with soap and water. So, we inherit quite a bit. Somebody has passed down to us scuzzy things, unknown things. Maybe we can know what to do with it, and maybe we just have to take it out. That's my best wisdom to do with some of the stuff that was left behind. I hope you, as you dig through your closets or you head off to new places and you find things hidden, that you decide what you're going to do with what others gave you. Are you going to treasure it? Or are you going to pass it along? That's entirely up to you. At this point, Cadence, would you come forward with the candle, and we in the room here will rise when you're ready to lead the children out to their religious exploration.
And now we recognize the cycle of life. We believe joys are magnified and sorrows eased by sharing them in loving community. We now pause to honor milestones and to lift up those who need our healing thoughts. Just a reminder, if there is something in your heart to share at this time, please write it down. Usher will bring it forward to add to the pastoral prayer that follows the cycle of life. Reverend Bob will be lighting the candles as I share with you our recognitions for today's cycle of life. Meanwhile, if you're watching online, please share your joys and concerns in the chat function, and we will light a candle for them. We light a candle for those workers on the front lines during this pandemic: sanitation workers, grocery clerks, delivery workers, healthcare workers, janitors, teachers, taxi drivers, and food servers. Those people who have often risked their lives to keep us safe and to lead us out of this perilous time. We light a candle in memory of the 48 souls in Transylvania County and more than 5 million worldwide whose lives were cut short by COVID-19, and for their loved ones whose lives have changed forever. We light a candle to symbolize global support for the representatives at the UN Climate Change Conference of the parties in Glasgow, who are tirelessly working as I speak to advance the goals of the Paris Agreement and the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. We light a candle for those milestones shared in the online chat. And this, a final candle for all those joys, sorrows, and milestones that remain unspoken at this time. Let us pause for a moment of silence to reflect on the joys and sorrows we have just heard and those we carry in our hearts.
I invite you to breathe deep. Let us continue into this spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of love and life, we who are gathered here, reflect on all the candles. the many ways in which we have repeated again and again our gratitude for those who have kept things running. Perhaps those in this congregation who put themselves on the line at their work through this time of the pandemic. May we never, ever take it for granted those who are there in our society who keep things going. Our prayers go out as well to those who are recovering from injuries, who are recovering from surgeries, or perhaps nervously looking forward to diagnoses or procedures. Our hearts go out to those who are suffering with grief, those in our grief group, and in particular this morning, let us keep in memory of Marilyn Lausch. And also, may we have some joys. May we remember that the seasons around us nourish us and remind us we are surrounded by beauty, by the beauty of the fall leaves. These, the prayers of our hearts and the meditations of our minds, we hold in this brief moment of silence. For all those known and unknown, remembered and forgotten, for all the helpers of humankind, we say, Amen. This may be the last time I describe this portion of the service this way. I turn to this moment of gratitude the way we've been doing it since reopening. No passing of baskets. But we inherited these baskets from someone right here in our midst. They are beautiful. They are meant to be used. Next week, when the choir fills these seats, we will also change our tradition of not touching a basket. But for today, I have to tell you, you have to go to the basket if you want to make a donation. Or you have to go to a button online to click and do it. We just got our official 501c3 designation, no longer operating under the UUA. What does that mean? Bob, what are you talking about? The IRS in the midst of giving? Well, for one thing, Facebook wouldn't let us put a donate button where we wanted it unless we had our own 501c3. We went to a lot of paperwork trouble just to make it easy for you. Because generosity should be something that becomes easy, something that is a habit, something that allows us to feel good. And when you see your minister after clicking those buttons, those brand new buttons that will appear, come on in. And I won't see it, but behind your mask, give a smile. For it's by giving the best of what we have to what we love that we develop that sense of joy. And we are grateful for all that you give in love, and we say thank you. The reading I've chosen this morning is entitled An Affirmation of Mutual Care by Erica Hewitt. I've adapted it so it's no longer a congregational participation, except for the part where I will invite you to rise as you're willing and able. This is This is something from the 1600s, our religious ancestors. In 1637, the white settlers in what was to become the town of Dedham, Massachusetts, wanted to start a church. What they longed for was sincere religious association based on love and founded in freedom. The idea of a free church took shape among the people, a church whose individual congregations were controlled by no outside authority. A radically lay-led church gathered by mutual consent rather than by mutual belief. Founded in covenant rather than creed, and governed by the congregation itself. 10 years later, the basis for gathering and governing was described in the Cambridge Platform, which remains a defining document for the people of faith, including Unitarian Universalists, who continue to practice congregational piety. Now, I would ask that you please rise in body or spirit, turn to face the members of this chosen congregation. You got to be looking at somebody other than me. And as I read this, think deeply about it. What our religious ancestors proclaimed in 1648 is still true today. The communion of churches is exercised by way of mutual care and taking thought for one another's welfare in case of need to minister relief and succor to one another. We, this family in faith, affirm the shared ministry formalized then and still here today. We offer to one another care and succor. We commit to taking our thought of our combined welfare as a congregation. We call upon each newcomer for the same, for we have promised one another that we will be a beloved community. We have found that there's always more to learn about how love really works and could work in our lives and in the world. You may be seated. Thanks for being in that little bit of history lesson. The sermon this week is The Paradox of Ancestry. And, you know, when that name appears, I think of the fact that I had one of those DNA tests, and they send me all sorts of messages. Oh, we think you have a fifth cousin. Great. You know, that there's somehow in our ancestry this sense that it's in our DNA, our genes. But this sermon focuses more on the DNA of a congregation and chosen groupings. We're both linked to our past history and creators of futures yet unknown. Also, before we head into the sermon, we are one of those traditions that our ancestors have told us back to the 1800s that there's a wisdom of knowing the world's religions. Our ancestors were key proponents of interfaith gatherings, a World Congress of religious leaders in Chicago in the 1890s, or the translation of books from India. I would like to acknowledge that we're in the season in India of one of the most significant festivals of this time, Diwali, or the Festival of Lights. It's a 5-day celebration that includes good food, fireworks, colored sand, and special lamps and candles. If you want to know more about it, go online. National Geographic has a video on YouTube that has a very brief, up-to-date, current times documentary on what would be going on right now. And you might have some neighbors around who celebrate in this, or perhaps within our midst as well. I'm glad we inherit the openness to the world's religions. It feeds so much of my soul. Remember this? I mean, I'd throw it to you and you could pass it around, but we didn't bring out lots of hand sanitizer. And this is actually kind of scuzzy when you look at it up close. We inherit so much. Stuff comes to us. I walk into this building and I see a painting of this chalice lit with the mountains in the background. I look on the walls and I see the artistry and craftsmanship, the beauty of what's been placed here. I stand in the garage of the gas company and say it doesn't look like one at all. What we inherit, the DNA of this place, is a combination of the efforts, the energies, the personality of the people who've gone before us, all the way back to the 1630s, when people wanted to start a congregation that wasn't under a hierarchy, that was free to choose what it wanted, make its own decisions, and gather together and minister to each other, all who might come. It's a wonderful inheritance, I believe, that we have, but there's a paradox of ancestry too. Ezekiel 18, verse 2 says, "The parents eat sour grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge." There's a book I ordered. It's really great to have information as a pastor in case I'm working with folks who are in their personal lives struggling with, well, their teeth being on edge because of their parents eating sour grapes. It's called "It Didn't Start With You: How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are." And that biblical quote was in there as the header of one of the chapters. Maybe you can think of this as well. What do you see? What do you remember of your parents' relationship to their parents? Did your parents ever say, "Grandma's a whole lot nicer to you than ever was to me"? Or did they keep you away from certain family members? You get the sense that they tensed up. Is there something about your parents that they brought forth, something that had been passed down in the family? Maybe a gravy ladle, or family silver, or something that only came out at the holidays, something that was placed on a high shelf. No, don't play with that. But it's a toy. Why can't I play with this? Oh, no, that's been passed down now for 2 generations. Okay, it's on a shelf. some kind of influence to have that passed down as a vibe. There's something about this. There's something special here, or maybe there's something negative as well. A sense of shame. Why? Why is there this sense of shame? I don't understand. But the vibe comes through. In any family, there are things which people start saying, I sound just like my mother. I sound just like my father. I am turning into curmudgeonly Uncle August all over again. Why? We get that in congregations too. Not only did the ideas of freedom in religion get passed down to us, but a whole lot of Puritan stuff. Well, or at least what we would call puritanical. We would have a whole lot of things that just don't make sense now. I've used this story before. It doesn't work for children. They don't have the experience that maybe you have from your workplaces, or maybe from the actual context that this example comes from, but it's used with organizational development people when they go into companies and consult. It's the story of how the Army was trying to make more efficient their ability to fire off rounds during war on the big guns. And they explain the process. Okay, what do? Well, the procedure book says that we put the armaments in place. We then get the correct aim and distance, calculate the wind. Then we all stand back, and 15 seconds later, we fire. They're scratching their heads. Well, why are you standing there for 15 seconds? And nobody knew until they dug up a visiting veteran who wandered by and said, well, that's when the infantry was told to hold the horses. You don't fire until you've made sure your horse isn't going to freak out and run away. Okay, well, we can take that 15 seconds off the checklist now. Fire at will. Each of us has been passed down a list. What do we do next? What do we do next? I don't know. Dad always did it this way. Why did Dad do it that way? I don't know. It just is the wisdom. So we're just going to keep on doing it. That's the paradox of inheritance in our ancestry. There's something at some point that may have made sense in context. But we get to, when we are our congregations, choose what we do. We can't erase history, but we can, in fact, decide what we want to do. I've been asked, when we reopen, will we have paper order of service? Well, maybe if you're a visitor and you have no idea what's going on, but we're either going to follow the pattern of what we're doing or not. And why do we have an order of service? Because we took the board off the wall that used to say which hymns and readings. If you go back to the early 20th century or before, they had a board that would say what was going on. Well, we could bring a board back, a whiteboard or electronic. Let's get a big old TV and put up there what's coming next. Or you could just relax and listen to, okay, now we're going to sing a hymn. What we found in churches is that because we've always done it, we each get one, and the usher licks their thumb and gives you a germy paper. And you take it to your seat, and you drop it on the floor, and then you go pick it up. Or you stick it in your hymn book because you want to find the words. And then the ushers go and clean after the service, and 90% of what we've handed out goes into the recycling bin. And we dutifully pay the people for copier paper. I don't know that we need to do that except for some folks who have to have a better outline of what they're doing. Next week we're going to give the outline to the choir. Or visitors need a basic outline of what goes on, but do they have to flip through and find the hymn and be ready to sing it? Not if we're doing this. We also have a whole lot of people in our congregation who have figured out that they need to adopt new families. They need to have a chosen family. This is one of those places where we are chosen family. We need not think alike to love alike. We just need to be open to one another in the adventure that we're on in spirituality. I like that. I like that we get to make up our own family here. Elton John and Rena, I can't think of her name. Anyway, if you look up Elton John and Rena singing Chosen Family, the chorus is something like this. We don't need to be related to relate. We don't need to share genes or a surname. You are my chosen family. So what if we don't look the same? We've been going through the same thing. Yeah, you are my chosen family. It's said that, with over 1 million views on YouTube, it then went on to be used in the closing ceremony of the Olympics in Japan. It's one of those things that we can do it ourselves. In 1637, they said we have the freedom. I think there are many historians who say once you tell the church people they can do their own decisions, then they want to go and change the world. And they decided that democracy was a good thing here on this continent. And we get to choose. You let those people grow and keep on voting themselves into new innovations in their chosen families, and they're going to go and invent something like Unitarian Universalism that's way out there. And unlike Transylvania itself, over there in the hills of Romania, where they decided they would politically lock up the main proponent of Unitarianism for innovations in religion. We don't have that happen here, or at least we haven't had it happen in the United States since the last heresy trial in the 1830s, long after we had become a nation with freedom of religion. He had been a Universalist preacher, by the way. Abner Kneeland, if you ever want to look him up. We don't need to be related to relate. We don't need to share genes or a surname. You are my chosen family. And I make that choice each time. Each time I've come to a congregation, each time I realize, you know what, my religion's outgrown. Where am I still going to fit in? And I realize I still fit in Unitarian Universalism. the breadth and the depth of what we have. We're not perfect here, and we have things that, well, each of us brings in. I think that church should be a certain way because it's the way I'm used to. Maybe you've come from another Unitarian Universalist church, and they always lit the chalice at a different place in the service, and why aren't we doing it? It took me years to get used to the way that church worked, and why aren't you doing it the way I got used to? Now, I've seen that in churches, and sometimes that's really innovative, and you get on the worship team, and the minister scratches his scruff and says, well, yeah, why aren't we doing it that way? But maybe there are a few things that we brought along with shame. In your former congregation, you had some people who broke boundaries, did something that caused trauma, and the adjustments that that congregation made to deal with it don't fit here. A congregation which is pretty open about the things that went wrong and doesn't seem to, from what I can see, carry a whole lot of shame. Just, all right, well, let's fix it. We made the building the way it is. We can make anything, including our chosen family, working best for what is good health. I love this place, and I know that you do too. I hope folks at home, next week, choir, be here live. I hope that you all come to church. I hope you all come to church with the love of what you found and the freedom to be on your path and the beauty of being able to leave behind things that were always done in whatever tradition you were in, and the ability to be a part of a chosen family that accepts you for the long laundry list of whatever your politics, your gender, your orientation, whatever accent you bring, whatever skin hue you have. This chosen family, we come to this place with great love and nurture it and still follow the shared ministry from all the way back to 1637. It's our congregation, and it's up to us to do with it as we wish. To close out this sermon, I share the words from the Reverend Andrew Kennedy, who I had known when I was a student in college and would drive all the way to the Muncie Church to go hear him. We come to love a church, the traditions, the history, and especially the people associated with it. And through these people, young and old, known and unknown, we reach out both backward into history and forward into the future to link together the generations in an imperfect but blessed community of memory and hope. Amen to that. The closing hymn that we're sharing this morning is number 138, These Things Shall Be. And it's one of those old inherited hymns that tries to remember what we're about and always have been about and want to bring into the future. Please rise as you're willing and able and stand still or sway or look bored or hum in whatever way. We'll get there, folks. These things shall be a loftier race than e'er the world hath known shall rise, with flame of freedom in their souls and light of science in their eyes. Nation with nation, land with land, unarmed shall live as comrades free. In every mind and heart shall throb the pulse of one humanity. High friendship hitherto a sin, or by great poets half divined, shall burn a steadfast star within the calm, clear spirit of the mind. New hearts of bloom of loftier mold and mightier music thrill the skies, and every life a song shall be when all the earth is paradise. Our closing words are from the Reverend Eileen Carpeles. As we part now from one another, let these be our thoughts. If that which is most holy lies within the human person, and if the greatest power in the world shines flickering and uncertain from each individual heart, then it's easy to see from the value of human associations dedicated to nurturing that light. The lovers, the family, the religious community. For the power of good in any one of us, as must, at times, waver. But when a group together is dedicated to nurturing the power of good, it is rare for the light to grow dim in all individuals at the same moment. So we borrow courage and wisdom from one another to warm us and keep us until we're together again. Blessed be, amen. Carry that wavering light out into the world.